If I look greasy, that's because I am. Welcome back to Chunk Style Remix. I'm Bryce, and my channel name seemed like a good idea at the time, and I already regret it. Today we are exploring the mayhem and gasoline-drenched world of Gaslands. Refuelled. Gaslands is written by Mike Hutchinson and published by Osprey Games, and is all about vehicular combat and absolute carnage. Now, I haven't had a chance to play a game yet myself, but I have been reading and rereading the rulebook over and over, and I am completely enamored with it. It is just so cool, unique, and easily my new obsession for at least the next few weeks. We'll see how things go. One of the things that's really cool about Gaslands is that it has a fairly low barrier to entry in terms of cost. You need the rulebook, a handful of toy cars, and some D6 dice. That's it. The rulebook has the movement templates and tokens in the back. You could just scan it and print it out yourself, or if you're really hurting, I reckon you could just like sketch them out yourself if you don't have a scanner. But yeah, that's really all you need if you're simply in it just to play the game. However, where Gaslands really shines, it's its enthusiastic encouragement of kitbashing. We can finally make the Mad Max cars of our dreams into a bite-sized reality, and man, I am here for it. So without wasting any more time, join me as we kitbash, arm, and paint my first maniacal motorized murder maker in Gaslands Refuelled. Okay, so here we have Gaslands Refuelled by Mike Hutchinson. So this is just a really awesome rulebook, and we're going to go through it a little bit here. If you're already familiar with Gaslands and you're not interested in this little blurb I'm going through, then skip to the following timestamp and we'll just get right into the build. But I thought it'd be cool to just go through it a tiny bit. It's everything you need is in this book, and then here is a good example of what Gaslands is about in 60 seconds, and I'll just read this here. Gaslands is a car combat game that combines toy cars, movement templates, and dice to allow you to race, skid, and blast your way through a post-apocalyptic dystopian future. Sweet! Here is how the game works in a nutshell. Each round in Gaslands is split into 6 gear phases, and each vehicle can be in one of 6 gears. Each round you count up from gear 1 to gear 6, and in each gear phase you activate every vehicle currently in that gear or higher. This means that cars in higher gears get to activate more than cars in lower gears, so driving fast is good. However, the faster you go, the fewer movement templates are available for you to select from. In particular, making sharper turns becomes more difficult or impossible. Driving fast is good because you get more activations, but you need to be careful as you might not have the maneuverability to avoid that concrete wall you were speeding towards. Well, that's pretty concise. And as you'll see, what you need here are toy cars, dice, movement templates, skid dice, which is what you're going to be using the dice for, dashboard cards, table terrain tokens. Now, a lot of these, okay, like the toy cars, you could use any kind of cars. Usually they use like Hot Wheels or Matchbox size. So like this here came with 8 cars. This is more than enough for 2 people to play. You could play with 1 car each. And this cost me like 10 or 12 bucks. Something to that effect. You'll notice one's missing because that's the one we're going to be working on. And when it comes to movement templates and everything, you can scan the ones here and just print them out yourself. And you'll see there's a lot of movement templates, and that's because movement is the biggest thing in this game, obviously because you're dealing with cars. And they do print out nicely, and here are all the tokens you can print out. And then you can, cut them out, put them on some cardstock or pieces of cardboard, something like that. But because the movement and the tokens are so huge in this game, you can opt to do something that I did, and there are tons of sellers on Etsy that have this, is buying some cut templates. Now this is from Chimeric Design, and you're able to choose from like over a dozen different colors. I chose this because the game's all about carnage and I want it to be as bright and crazy looking as possible. So these are awesome. They're nice and thick and hardcore. They're all laser cut, and they have, what template it is and what gear you're able to use it in. Long straight means I can use it in gear 5 or 6. And then here's the slide templates, large template. Got all these bad boys, which is awesome. And I also got all of these tokens. Same thing, all laser cut. It's everything you need, and I got these, and I don't know, they look awesome, and I thought it was very much worth paying for. And when it comes to skid dice skid dice are something that you don't have to roll skid dice at all in this game. Skid dice are something that you're able to do in order to make interesting plays and whatnot. So you use a skid dice table. So you roll a d6, and on 1 you gain a hazard token, 2 you gain a spin, 3 is a slide, and 4 to 6 is a shift. You're going to want a lot of shifts because that allows you to gear up, gear down, remove hazard tokens. Because if you get 7 hazard tokens, I believe 7, that'll cause a wipeout, which is not always good. And again, you could use a regular d6 for that, but because I already splurged on the other, this is another one. Mr. Laser, thank you kindly. Another Etsy shop where they have custom skid dice. And you can pick a color and whatnot. Again, I was going for all of these different crazy colors so that they all really stand out with one another. 2 shifts, 2 slides and a spin. Ugh. You roll as many skid dice on your activation as you have your car has handling. So if your car has a handling of 3, you roll 3 skid dice. Wow, that's a good roll. And you could use your skid dice to do some really cool things. As every time I start reading this again, I'm reminded of just how many cool things you're able to, just how many interesting situations you're able to get yourself in. Let's see here. I'm gonna read to you another example, just so you can. It's gonna sound a little bit like nonsense if you're not familiar with the game, but it'll just show you that there's actually a bit more strategy to this. Strategy and luck. It's risks versus reward. And this is something I like in this book a lot. They have a lot of example activations as to how you can use certain things and what you're supposed to do. Okay, so this is Skid Dice Example 2. Again, it's gonna sound pretty insane, but it makes sense when you start getting used to it. It's just an example. A truck with handling 2 is in current gear 3 and has 4 hazard tokens at the start of its activation. The player selects a hard movement, which is hazardous in gear 3, and immediately gains the penalty hazard resulting from selecting a hazardous movement, bringing it to 5 hazard tokens. The player then, unwisely, decides to roll 2 skid dice. One die rolls a slide and the other rolls a hazard. These dice currently are going to cause the pickup truck to gain 2 hazard tokens, bringing it to a total of 7 and a wipeout. The player decides to take a risk and place a 6th hazard token on the pickup truck's dashboard to push it. Push it is another thing that you're able to do, hoping to roll a pair of shifts. The player re-rolls both skid dice, that's pushing it, and happily both roll shift results. The player uses both of the shift results to remove hazard tokens from the truck's dashboard. The truck ends this skid dice resolution in gear 3 and back on 4 hazard tokens, meaning it is safe from the wipeouts when the wipeout step arrives. So all of this was basically just to keep it as is and be able to use the hard turning template without any crazy things going on. And that is just kind of how the game works in general. It just keeps on going out like that. There's I don't know, there's just so many cool things in this. I recommend anybody to get this because I know I spent a lot of money on not just the book, but I got the cars and I got all these, these kind of guys and like more laser etched turn templates. But you don't need any of that. All you need is the book, and then you're good. So with that, I was going to go into this a bit more, but really, I think you get the picture. I think either hearing those 2 things, the Gaslands in 60 seconds and the sample skid dice activation, really will tell you whether or not you were interested in the game at all. Some people, I'm on a Gaslands group on Facebook, and some of them, have never played the game. They have no interest in playing the game. They just like kitbashing the cars to give them that Mad Max dystopian feel, which is also awesome. But yeah, with that, we're going to get into the build.
Okay, so first things first. This rolling, yeah, we got to get rid of that. But here's my little car that I'm going to be using, and it's pretty sweet. It came in my little Matchbox set, and it was an exclusive car. It is a 1968 Dodge D200. That means nothing to me. But yeah, this wheeling here, this kind of goes against all of my natural instincts as a kid who played with Hot Wheels and everything to make these wheels not turn. And here are what I'm going to be using as my little kit bash here. So I have these little plastic pieces. You could use like plasticard, but I was using these bread clips. And they're a little limited in what you can use just because there's not a lot of real estate. But as you can see, I was able to cut out these little panels, which I'm going to be using as like sheet metal. You know, like the whole idea behind this build is that they're going to be, you know, slapdash, just like, you know, they just took whatever kind of random sheet metal they could find, or just big old lumps of steel, and just welded them onto the car. And I have that little springy white thing that's this guy right here. I have no idea what it is. I don't even know where it came from. I just found it on the floor of my office, and I'm going to use it as a bumper. So hopefully it doesn't go into anything important. I have these leftover toothpick tips, these points, from when I was attempting to make a chain gun, like a minigun to go on this, and I decided, well, I could at least use these as like a little bumper. Here's the minigun I tried to make. By the way, way harder than you'd think. Just glue them on in a circle and they're fine, right? Yeah, no. Gotta have one in the middle, and it was a whole thing. But when I made this, I realized that I thought it's just way too big looking. It looked a little unruly. So instead, I'm going to use this Space Marine bolter. And now it's one of those ones with the big mag. Like, it's not a heavy bolter, but we're going to use it anyway because I had extra. And I'm just going to cut off the handle, and that's gone forever. Farewell. And we're just going to slap this right onto the side of it. Because even though this is a little big as well, and the chain gun was honestly fine for its size, but for my first build, I wanted things to be a little more cohesive, and I just felt it was a little over the top. I didn't really know how to make a base to it either. And I also have these little spears that were spears for my goblin army for Kings of War. I turned them into little sword guys anyway, so I had the extra spears. I was thinking about like mounting them in the back. And these guys, I have these holes that I drilled into the corners with my little mini hobby drill in order to make rivets. And I made all of these rivets out of green stuff. And it was just as tedious as it looks. I looked at like a really old Eons of Battle video where he had used micro beads as rivets in plastic art. And I thought it was really cool looking, but I cannot find micro beads anywhere. So I made my own with green stuff, so they're a little all over the place in terms of size, but I think that'll even kind of add to the slapdash build nature of this. And I was roughing up the insides of these in order to have them stick better with the glue, and then I did that with the first one, and then the next three I forgot to do that, but then I remembered again. But this is something kind of liberating about this entire build, is that I always really liked orcs, like Warhammer orcs and 40k orcs, because of their, you know, kind of their IRL kitbashing design of all their vehicles. But I've never had any of my own orcs, so this is, it almost kind of feels like that's what I'm building. I'm building like just an orky truck. I'm gonna shut up for a bit. Picking up these little beads I made out of green stuff, I left in one or two of me dropping it. I'm sparing you because, oh my god, I dropped them so many times. But once I got the hang of it, these went in, and you know, some of them were a little too big and they kind of sat more on the top. But it's fine, because at the end of it, it just kind of looked like they're not really, they're supposed to be like giant rivets, but you know, maybe this post-apocalyptic thing, they're just kind of using whatever they can to makeshift some rivets, so it doesn't really matter. Some of them are too big, some of them are just right. But in any case, I do think they turned out pretty cool. So these are the other little like metal sheets I was going to have them welding onto here, but honestly, the drilling of the holes with the little miniature drill was a little more taxing than I anticipated. I think this plastic is a lot thicker than I thought, because the drill bit just kept getting stuck and then not turning and just getting like turning in the chuck. So these ones I figured like, they ran out of rivets and they just adhered it however they could. And when it comes to these spikes on the bumper, oh man, I like the way they turn out, but they feel so fiddly, so fragile. And I mean, honestly, maybe hot glue would have been the move here, but it does turn out all right. Just because of how the truck bed was, there wasn't a lot of things for these spears to grip onto, so it was pretty necessary for me to really rough up the edges, because I tried it without doing that, and they wouldn't stay no matter what, and roughing up the edges made it work perfectly. So, right on. And just priming it black brings it all together immediately. And this is what I mean. It just, man, it made it look so good just off the hop. I'm always blown away by just how good just friggin' black primer will make something. And what I'm going to do now is use a makeup sponge to do some gray and then do a little white for the highlights. I didn't want to do a regular dry brush with a brush because I want this car to look grimy. We're not doing any rust effects or anything, but I did want it to look pretty patchwork. I mean, for God's sakes, they're just like attaching everything willy-nilly to this truck. So giving it kind of a messier look, I thought was the way to go. And doing the white after the gray was just to pick up some more of the highlights, which is also one of my first times doing that. When it came to the glass on the truck and everything too, there are some people, they just poke out the glass entirely. Other people will put the masking tape on it. I just opted on just keeping it as is and using the primer and then the highlight or the dry brush, because I think it gives it a cool like glazed look. And I went with Slaughter Red because the truck was originally red anyway, and I wanted to keep it in the same spirit of how it was, but give it a bit more of the, you know, this truck is used for death and destruction kind of red. We're using a little bit of the dark wood speed paint just on the the wood sections of these spears we have mounted in the back. It doesn't really pop out all that much, but you know, still cool. And then pallid bone for the straps, the cordage that's holding the spears on. And that actually turns out all right. When I was dry brushing, I barely touched those spikes on the front, on the bumper, because like I had said, they just felt really fragile, but I hit them just enough that I threw some of the pallid bone on there too, just to make them look a bit more like wood stakes, and then moved on to the broadsword silver metallic speed paint. The whole point of doing the speed paint with this was because I just really wanted to utilize the dry brushing highlight and everything. I don't know if I would do it every single time, but it definitely made it easier. A little grim black for the wheels. And because I can't help myself, a little bit of bloody red from Vallejo, because whoever's driving this truck has no consideration for pedestrians whatsoever. We're using some of this beastly brown, and this is, I was looking forward to this, and I was really wondering how it was going to turn out, and this was just to give the wheels and around the undercarriage of the truck just like a dirty, you know, it's been driving through all sorts of terrain and mud, and it's just flicking up just enough. It's not like it was going mudding, but just enough, give it a little bit of a dirtier feel, and I was actually really pleased how this was turning out. I say was because soon I'm going to screw it up. And here's where I screw it up. My heart was in the right place. I was trying to use a bit of watered down ones and a brush to flick some on to look like natural droplets. And I just really don't like how it turns out. The drops are way too big. So I tried drying my brush and then kind of giving it a smear effect. And it's not horrible. It's just dirtier than I intended. And it is what it is. Now, I had no idea what kind of oil or something to use or wash, but I wanted to use one, so I just went with strong tone. And it's maybe some other time I'll use like, you know, like a red tone on the red and then just the strong tone on like the wheel. I don't really know. So instead, this is my first go. I just decided to slop it on everywhere except for the windows. I don't know why. I don't know why I didn't do the windows. I kind of liked how it looked. They looked like they had this like frosted look to them. And I think I was just a little nervous as to what would happen if I had put oil on them as well, or wash rather. So I just didn't. You know what? I didn't even think about that until I was editing this video. Let her dry. And here we are. And really, it doesn't look like much, but I am just happy as a clam with how it turned out. My very first kit bash, my first scratch build anything, my first time painting a toy car or anything like that. And just from throwing random stuff on it, I think it really came across the exact way that I wanted it to. And I'm just happy as peaches. I'm just glad it turned out nice. My daughter said she liked it too, and I appreciate her compliments. Good God. All right, so that turned out awesome. I really had no idea going into this if it was going to be all right. In fact, the reason why this video took so long is because I think part of it, I was just doubting myself and everything. I've never kit bashed anything before. So this was a totally new thing for me, and I'm just like, is this going to work? Is this not going to work? I had to, you know, take some inspiration by watching some other videos and realizing that, okay, once I get a bunch of just, you know, stuff on it, on the car, it's probably not going to look great, but then, you know, prime it, start painting it, and hey, look, it all comes together. Fancy that. I don't know why I doubted myself so much. It's kind of my bread and butter. One of the great things about it is that it didn't make me feel like, oh, thank goodness this is done. Now I can, you know, move on to something else and not worry about any of these cars for a while. I just want to do more of them. And I have so many ideas already, and there doesn't have to be a rhyme or reason to them, because this isn't a what you see is what you get game. You can have anything you want on these cars, and if you're just like, okay, this represents a buggy and it has these guns, it doesn't have to have any of those guns on them. It's really liberating in that way, where you can just put anything on these cars. Just make them cool. You don't have to put anything on them. You could just use them as is, right out of the box. Buy one of those Matchbox sets with, you know, 8 cars in it, and there you go. You're good to go. You don't need to put all that stuff on them, and you just be like, yeah, it's got a flamethrower, it's got a rocket launcher, who cares? So that's really cool. And I'm gonna make some more. Yeah, I got some ideas. Got some ideas brewing up in here, yeah. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this. We're going to get a bit of a regular flow of videos coming out now. I promise. Swear to God. I mean, if I don't, I don't. But I am going to try. In any case, thank you so much for joining me here today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you again. Take care of yourselves, and peace.